Dave Chappelle walked away from 50 million.
No, that's not even close to what happened to this dude.
Everybody wants to know, why'd you walk away from $50 million?
I wasn't walking away from the money.
Yeah.
I was walking away from the circumstances.
Not they offered him 50 million and he turned it down. Who gonna turn down 50 million?
They worked on him for 45 minutes on the sand. Sun in their eyes, waves still punching the shoreline like nothing had happened, and strangers taking turns refusing to quit. That's the image that stuck with me. Not the breaking news headline, the fight to bring him back. And there's one detail from that beach almost nobody led with: who found him, and what they said about that water afterward. Let's rewind with clear eyes for 30 seconds, because the story deserves that. July 20th, 2025, Costa Rica. Playa Cocles. It looked like a good day, the kind that lures you in. Not gray or stormy, not cinematic danger. Just a warm afternoon on a postcard beach. Malcolm Jamal Warner, Theo Huxtable to a whole generation, was on a family trip, doing what dads do, splitting attention between the shore, the kid, the water. Then the water changed. A rip current took control. By the time bystanders and medics were done, the official word was accidental asphyxiation by submersion.
NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm Jamal Warner has died at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for, of course, his Emmy-nominated role as Theo Huxtable, Cliff's son.
That's the clinical line for a loss that doesn't feel clinical at all. If you were anywhere near a phone that day, you saw the tributes fly in. Co-stars, other shows he'd worked on, folks who grew up with him in their living rooms. It was fast, and it was heavy. But alongside the grief, there was that second wave, the questions. And the reason they didn't go away is simple. Cocles has a reputation. You can stand there, think it's gentle, and in the next breath, the ground slides out from under you. Locals talk about that beach in the same tone you use for a road with too many crosses on the shoulder. Beautiful, but you don't relax around it. Here's the timeline as cleanly as we can hold it. It wasn't chaos from the start.
How hard it is to be black in America, even if it looks like we've got it made. But freedom has its limits, so here we are, tear-streaked and salt-stained faces.
People were in the water, some fine, some not fine. A high current set up like a moving sidewalk you couldn't see, and it did what rip currents do, pulled people away from help. Not under the water at first, but out. Somewhere in that scramble, surfers stepped in. Sex, 0.05. A doctor was there. CPR started. The Red Cross took over. And then that quiet sentence. He was pronounced dead. Per Costa Rican authorities in the autopsy, it was accidental and it was fast. No conspiracy needed to break your heart, just physics and fatigue. Here's where it takes a left turn, because the part that haunts people isn't only the current, it's the pattern they think they recognize.
Great brother. I saw a clip last night that Malcolm Jamal Warner said he didn't want to be known as Malcolm Jamal Warner, the actor. He wanted to be known as Malcolm Jamal Warner, the man. And I agree, because I do not like seeing people say R.I.P. Theo. Like, Malcolm Jamal Warner was a real person, a real man, a real human with a real family.
We've heard it all week. Why was he in that spot? Weren't there flags? Where were the guards? Some of that is hindsight, but some of it is logistics. Cocles isn't a theme park. Lifeguard coverage can be thin or off shift, and warning systems aren't always what tourists expect. That's not an accusation, it's the reality of a lot of beautiful beaches with powerful water. When you combine that with a current you can't see, you get a day that feels normal until it isn't. And then there's the rumor engine. Because this is the internet, and because Malcolm Jamal was that rare thing in Hollywood, deliberate, careful. He picked roles like someone guarding a name he wanted to hand to his kid one day.
And they say he was pulled out to sea. Malcolm Jamal Warner played the only son on The Cosby Show among 4 sisters. So many Americans watched him grow up on that show. He went on to act in dozens of other TV shows and films, and he won a Grammy as well. Tonight here, the heartfelt words pouring in, the touching words from the actor himself, what Malcolm Jamal Warner once said about life and about death.
He said more than once he wasn't about to compromise his soul for a check. Fans connect dots, sometimes too fast, sometimes not at all, between people who say no to certain offers and the strange turbulence that seems to follow. No, that doesn't mean everything is a plot, but it does explain why people pulled Dave Chappelle into the conversation. The man who walked away from $50 million because something felt off and disappeared to recenter. Same with Cat Williams talking about moving funny after a break-in that didn't feel random. Context, not proof, just the public's mental map for stories like this.
Before we follow that thread, we have to talk about what rip currents actually do, because this is the one part of the story that could literally save someone later.
Dave Chappelle was decapitated in front of us. They called him Pilot Boy because he had 19 pilots in Hollywood and everybody passed on him and said his show wasn't worth it. Then when he made $500 million, they said even though his contract said he should get half of it, they said he made too much for the contract.
A rip doesn't suck you down like a movie monster, it drags you out. You waste all your energy trying to swim straight back through a treadmill of water with a bad attitude. The trick is to float, breathe, and move parallel to shore until you're out of the conveyor belt. Simple sentence, hard to remember in panic. Share it anyway, it sticks in your head the way fire drill rules stick, and one quiet reminder on a crowded beach can pay for itself forever. Now, about that detail most people missed. The people who found him were not lifeguards on a raised chair scanning the horizon with whistles in their mouths. It was surfers. It was a doctor who had to make decisions most of us only rehearse in our minds. They worked him for 45 minutes. Per multiple reports, they called in help and kept going until help arrived. And then the Red Cross carried it to the line.
They're trying to convince me I'm insane. They were trying to get me to take psychotic medication.
Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about.
That's not just a fact, it's the measure of the day. You want to know who you are under pressure? That's it, right there. Okay, here's the part fans keep circling back to, and it isn't a theory, it's the gap. 2 logistical gaps, actually. First, flagging. People who live near high-risk beaches will tell you the flag system only works when it's visible, updated, and respected. Red flag can become background noise if you see it every day, or if it's placed where tourists don't look. Second, coverage. If you've ever surfed spots like Cockles, you know there are hours with eyes on the water and hours without. When the current sets up in the without window, time turns into the enemy. None of that blames a person, it describes a system. And systems decide outcomes more than we want to admit. I'm going to say this as cleanly as possible because it matters. The authorities in Costa Rica ruled this accidental.
The autopsy says asphyxiation by submersion. The police timeline matches what the people on that beach described. That's the record. Hold it gently, but hold it. So why do people still drag Chappelle and Cat into it? Because Warner wasn't just beloved, he was respected for how he moved. He didn't play thirsty. He didn't chase flash. He could carry a show without the tabloid side quests, and in a town that rewards chaos, that reads like rebellion. When someone like that dies in a way that feels avoidable, folks go hunting for villains. It's human. But sometimes the villain is the ocean, the clock, and 100 tiny choices we don't see until we zoom out. Let's talk about the family, because they set the tone we should follow. In the days after, his mom spoke up. She said he didn't suffer. She focused on honoring what he stood for. Not the mystery, not the noise, the mission. Castmates echoed it. People remembered the discipline. That's not PR. That's what colleagues say when the resume is real and the person matched it.
What more do we know right now about the circumstances surrounding his death?
That's right. So, Sam, we know that this incident took place on Sunday in Costa Rica. He was on a family vacation. He was swimming off of the coast of a town called Coquelles in the province of Limon.
The legacy announced in that moment wasn't a statue or an award. It was a way of moving through rooms with integrity intact.
There's one more beat people keep bringing up. The daughter. The idea that she was out there too, caught in the same current, and that surfers pulled her to safety. If you sat with that sentence for a second, you probably held your breath without meaning to. The reports are clear. She survived. Both surfers survived. For every story that ends in a circle of exhausted people on the sand and a quiet pronouncement, there are stories where the ocean gives someone back. That matters here. It matters a lot. One last detail flips how you look at the day. It wasn't a "how could this happen to him" day. It was a "this can happen to anyone here" day. That's the trap with Coquelin. It sells calm from the parking lot and invoices you in the break. If you travel, if you swim, if you surf, build the habit before your feet touch the water. Ask locals where the rips set up. Look for the channels. Find the lifeguards. And, if none are on duty, set your own rules. 10 minutes of study today beats 10 minutes of panic later. I know some people want a darker answer. They want a text message, a voicemail, a shadow in the corner of the frame. But there's a different kind of hard truth here. Life can be both meaningful and fragile at the same time. The show that made him famous was built on the idea that a black family's everyday life deserved to be seen as fully human. The man who grew up from that show made choices that said the same thing. He curated his name, he protected his center, and the example that leaves is weirdly radical. You can work, you can care, you can say no, and you can still be in a place where the ocean asks you a question no one can answer in time. So what do we do with this? We honor him in the practical ways. We learn what a rip looks like. We give our people the boring safety talk before we roll coolers onto the sand. We check the flags. We choose beaches with eyes on the water when we can.
Sex 0.05. We teach the float and breathe mantra until it sounds corny, and then we say it one more time. And we honor him in the personal ways. Choose the work that doesn't cost your soul. Keep your circle real. Guard your name like it belongs to someone who hasn't been born yet. If you were in Puerto Viejo that day, if you surf coquels, if you've got local knowledge we missed, drop it in the comments. Not the spooky stuff, not the performative outrage, the details that help another family go home together. Because that's the only answer that beats the ocean at its own game. And if you want more deep dive stories that go past headlines and into what actually matters, hit like, hit subscribe, and ring that little bell. The next one, you'll want to see it, because there's a moment in it I can't stop thinking about.